Hello everyone and welcome back. So in this video I want to look at 7 similarities with the Sega Mega Drive and the Sony PS3. So in my last video I looked at Sonic the Hedgehog and I looked at 3 facts about the main characters and the early days of the series that you might not have known. Now, in this video, I want to look at 7 things which are actually similar with the Mega Drive and PlayStation 3. So these will start off very obvious. Then I want to move to maybe a fact that you are aware of regarding one, but didn't know they actually have in common. Then I want to finish with a similarity which will highlight just how quickly time passes. Okay, firstly, I think if I asked someone what they both have in common and I showed both sitting side by side, I think the first thing people would say, aside from they're both game consoles, is that they're both black. So there are many consoles which are black, so this isn't particularly unique. But I do think it is worth mentioning, as when you look at each generation, it's not a given that every system should be black. So for example, the Mega Drive is part of the 4th gen of consoles, and it's, I would say, most popular contemporary would have been, in order, the Super Nintendo, which was grey, then after the Mega Drive would be the PC Engine, which is white. There was the Neo Geo as well, which was similarly dark grey, black. But I do think it is interesting that, of the top 3 consoles of this gen, that it's the only one which was black. And this is also true of the PS3 initially. Now, it's part of the 7th generation, which includes the Nintendo Wii, which was released first in white, as well as 360, which was released in white. So each system later would have different colors available. On launch of those 3, it was only the PlayStation which was initially in black. Number 2 is that both systems were the 3rd home system from each company. So obviously, with PS3, it's number 3. With Mega Drive, in this part of the world, the Master System is the first home system, with the Mega Drive the 2nd. However, actually in Japan, there was a system which was earlier than the Master System, which was the SG-1000. Now, there was a Mark II of this system, which is just a revision of the Mark I. There was then the Mark III released, which is more advanced, to the point where it's considered by Sega to be a new system. So most of its games are only playable on the Mark III, and it's this system, the Mark III, which has been released in the West as the Master System. Moving on to number 3, I mentioned in the 4th generation, the Mega Drive was the 2nd console which was released. So first, the PC Engine in 1986 1987. Then Mega Drive in 1988, followed by the Super Nintendo and Neo Geo, and so on. As for the 7th generation, first was 360 in 2005. Then second was PlayStation 3, which was a year later in 2006. And the Wii was released that same year. However, it was released after the PlayStation, which means that both the PS3 as well as Sega Mega Drive are the second home systems to be released in their generation. Similarity number 4, both systems had 3 designs. So the PS3 had the initial large design with the shiny front or top. Then there was the slim with the matte finish. Then the version with the mechanism on the top, which you could slide back to insert a game. Now, while the first PlayStation and second both had 2 versions, the standard, then slim, this was actually the first PlayStation home system to have 3 versions. And this has been the case with also the PS4 and PS5. As for the Mega Drive, there's the Mega Drive 1, then Mega Drive 2, but there is a number 3, which is quite a later edition. Number 5 is that they started off slow, then were more popular later after there was a change to how they were sold. So with the PlayStation 3, initially it started off quite slow, and it was then later when the system was basically changed, redesigned. The logo was changed, the console was redesigned, and it gradually then began to pass the Xbox. As for Mega Drive, it took until when Sonic was released for it to be more popular, to start catching the Super Nintendo. In both cases, it was actually 3 years after the release when this success began. With the Mega Drive was released in 1988. It was in 1991 when Sonic was released, while the PS3 was released in 2006 with the redesign in 2009. The 6th similarity is that both systems finished second in their generation. So the Mega Drive was, in terms of sales, second after the Super Nintendo, while the PS3 was second after the Wii. The 7th last similarity is that the PlayStation 3 was released as long ago as the Mega Drive was released when the PlayStation 3 came out. So it's 2024. The PS3 came out in 2006, which is 18 years ago. In 2006, the Mega Drive was 18 years old, as it was released in 1988. So I think that shows, how quickly time passes and how, we're getting old. And of course, this applies as of this year. From 2025, the PS3 will actually be older than the Mega Drive was when the PS3 was new. And I think this is interesting as it brings up the question of retro. I owned PS3 from release, and I know that when the PS3 was out, something like the Super Nintendo and Mega Drive felt, they were retro. Even in the previous generation, with like the GameCube, Game Boy Advance, games from the 16, like Super Nintendo games were retro then. So you're talking about 10 years or so of a difference from the 4th gen to 6th. With now, looking back on Wii or PS3, which that was 18 years ago, doesn't feel quite as retro. And I think this is partly, I think it's due to diminishing returns, where there was a big jump from, for example, the 16-bit gen to the 5th with something like the N64. But now I think that the step forward isn't as large. So that is just a list of 7 things which are similar with the Mega Drive and PS3. And so I hope you enjoyed this. And as I say in my videos on my account, I tend to focus on retro and modern game collecting. And I like to cover topics and discussions like this. So I hope you find it interesting. And if you like this, please just give me a like. You can comment down below with any memory you have of these or any console. And also you can subscribe and take a look at my videos. So I hope you join me for my next video, and until then, God bless and take care.